Hi, I'm Penny Rogers, and I blog over at ourcrazyadventuresinautismland.com, and today we are talking about doing therapies at home with your special needs child. There are a couple different types of therapy you can do at home: occupational therapy, speech, physical, sensory processing disorder therapy, social skills group. And there are a couple different reasons why you could do therapy at home. You can still be doing therapy in a therapy center and want to do therapy at home as well. It gives your child, I have a child with autism, so doing therapy at home allows him to make greater strides with his therapy goals, because he's getting it not only at therapy but also at home. So if you have a therapy center, an occupational therapist or speech therapist that you're working with, you want to simply ask them for an at-home program with ideas and things, activities you can do that will help your child reach his therapy goals faster. You can also do therapy at home because your insurance doesn't cover therapy appointments, or they only cover a certain amount. With Logan, they would only cover like $1,500 worth of therapy appointments, especially for occupational therapy. So after that, we had to pay out of pocket. And so it behooved us to make sure that we were doing therapy at home as well as at the therapy center. A great way to continue therapy at the center, if you would rather do that than at home, is to ask them for the cash price. Lots of therapy centers will give you a substantial discount if you pay cash, and they don't have to file insurance, but you just have to ask them. After a while though, even the cash price was too much for us, especially if you need therapy 3 to 5 times a week, or if you need occupational, speech, and physical therapy. If you need multiple therapies, it can add up quickly. So we liked to do it at home. So for occupational therapy, we worked on motor planning and postural control. Postural control is, as you see in the picture, he's laying on his stomach and he is reading a book propped up on his elbows. And the reason for this is because it helps with the fine motor. By working on his shoulder strength and his core strength, it makes him able to do fine motor better. So you want to work on things like that. You can lay under the table and paint. That's a great one for motor planning. Just put art paper underneath your dining room table and let your child lay on his back, sort of like Michelangelo, and paint a picture underneath there. They'll think it's fun. And if you leave it there, then when people come over, they can be like, hey, I have a secret painting. It's loads of fun. So fine motor is just that, fine motor. You do that by working with your child on how to pick up Cheerios, if you like, or lacing cards are great for that. Web space development is the area between your thumb and your index finger. That has to be strong in order for them to hold their pencil. So you would just Google ideas for how to work on that, depending on what your child needs work on. So you have proprioceptive stimulation, bilateral coordination, hand arch activities. Heavy work activities are super easy. It's just something, your child carrying something that's heavy, or wearing a backpack while doing chores. We just would load up a backpack, similar to like if he was going to public school and he had all his books in it. You just put a whole bunch of stuff in a backpack. He would wear it like while he was sweeping or while we were walking, just something like that. So weighted vest work in that area too. Core work. You're not going to have great occupational therapy without a great core. Planks are great for that. Anything you could do to work their core, because most, especially children with autism, have hypotonia. Logan has a pretty severe case of it, so we've been working on this for years. And so they don't have hypotonia, is when their muscles don't have a whole lot of control. So no matter what you do, they sort of look like a giant marshmallow. And so you really have to work on the core work. In order to make all of these other things go into place, there has to be a good core. So if you don't work on anything, work on core work. And the pool is great for that. If you happen to have a pool, there's great pool activities that you can do that that will work the core while the child thinks they're having fun. And of course, hand-eye coordination. This is easily done. It's probably the easiest out of all of the occupational therapy items, because that you can do that playing video games, you can do that playing tennis, you can throw a ball back and forth. The point is that you can work on occupational therapy at home, but it doesn't have to be fancy. You don't need a scooter board. I mean, if you have one, great. It's perfect for using on your carport or your driveway. But you can use things like tennis balls to throw back and forth. Tennis balls are great for the hand arch activities, because you just squeeze it and it helps build up your hand strength. Fine motor can be as simple as opening and closing clothespins so that it works their finger strength. So the point is that occupational therapy is easily done at home. You just have to think out of the box. Speech therapy is another one of those that you can work on at home without a whole lot of equipment. So everyday language therapy is simply where your child comes up and speaks with you and you correct them as they speak. So if Logan were to come up and he would be having difficulty saying a certain sound, for Logan this is the TH sound together. He always says it as an F instead of the. So when he is speaking with us, I will often correct his the, which he says fa, to the, so that it reminds him that he is saying it wrong and that he needs to work on that. Now, I would not do this every single time your child spoke, because then your child's going to quit speaking to you. Let's be honest. Nobody wants to talk to someone who makes them feel bad. So once or twice during the conversation, when Logan says the TH sound incorrectly, I will correct the word, but that's probably for 50 times he says the TH sound incorrectly during the conversation when I don't correct it. So don't correct every single thing your child's doing wrong in everyday language therapy, because you want the child to still make progress. Utilize your child's passions in this. A great time to work on speech therapy is when you're talking about, for us, dinosaurs. Whatever your child likes. It could be dinosaurs, it could be trains, it could be, I don't know, reptiles. I'm trying to think of all the things Logan's into. It could be baby dolls. Whatever your child likes, use that to your advantage, and have your child talk to it or talk about it. Baby dolls are a great thing for that, because your child can have a conversation back and forth with her baby, so that way you can work on some things that she needs to work on as well. Memorization and recitation are perfect for speech therapy, and lots of people overlook this. Teaching your child, especially your special needs child, to memorize something. I know here in autism, it's easy to get him to memorize it, because that's the way his brain is wired. Logan can memorize anything. He also has a near photographic memory, so once he reads it 1 or 2 times, he has it in his brain. It's great for motor planning. It helps make those neural pathways when they memorize, so absolutely have them memorize. The best part for speech therapy is when they memorize it and they recite it back to you. They learn those sounds and combinations that they may not be able to learn just by you teaching them. So it's sort of like teaching your kids grammar by having them read good literature. If your child's reading good books, they're going to learn grammar without you even trying. This is the exact same thing for speech therapy. If you have your child memorize something easy, I mean, we're not asking a 4-year-old to memorize the preamble to the Constitution. That would be crazy. But a fun little poem or something, some Shakespeare, something like that, and recite it back will be great for working on speech therapy. Narration is another one. It's where you read a story and the child tells you back in their own words what they heard or what they comprehended from the story. This works great for speech therapy because it can tell you if there are any auditory processing delays, and if your child's hearing something completely different than what you're reading, then you need to work on that before you work on speech, because you can't have good speech if the child's not hearing what you're saying correctly. So this narration is a great way to work on auditory processing delays, which go hand in hand with speech therapy. You want to do a multi-sensory approach to this. Just like anything else with special needs, your child most likely thinks in pictures, or most likely will get the best educational benefit from using all of their senses. So for speech, you might want to work on sensory boxes as you do, speech sounds, or you might want to make, if you're working on the F sound, you might want to make frogs that jump, so that your child has a way to connect the speech sound with something they've done. So again, you're just making the connection needed in their brain to make sure that that speech sound comes out correctly. Physical therapy is often one of those overlooked therapy options to do at home. Physical therapy helps all of the other therapies sort of fall into place. So it's important to do physical therapy with your special needs child, even if you don't do it at some sort of center. As you can see, my number one thing on the slide is core work. Having a strong core will help your child to do many other things. So I can't emphasize core work enough. Again, planks, playing in the pool, anything that helps the core work. The slide shows Logan on a horse. We did hippotherapy for a long time, and that is a great way. That's a fantastic way to work on core work. So if you can find an equestrian center in your area that does some sort of special needs activity so that your child can ride horses, that's great. It doesn't have to be a certified hippotherapy program, but I would recommend that you check out the program to be sure that they know how to work with special needs kids. For a long time, Logan just rode the horse around, and then we moved on to the actual hippotherapy center and the hippotherapy skills, but it helped him just to ride the horse. So if that's all you can do, then something's better than nothing, and do it. But make sure that the people that are working with your child are verified and that they are patient, because your child may be afraid of the horse. Logan did not get on the horse the first 8 times we went out to the hippotherapy center. So you have to remember that our special needs kids also have other comorbid conditions like anxiety and things like that, OCD. So I know, well, in autism, they often have comorbid conditions like that. So you have to take that into account as well. Stamina work is a great one, because your child's not going to be able to do anything if they can't keep up with you. So working on staying with you, walking is great for this if your child can do that. We walked a little further every time. Sitting upright at the table with me for short bursts and then gradually increasing it. We worked on that. He walked on the treadmill as well. Yoga is great, again, for the core work, but also for stretching the muscles. You want to make sure that they're getting the right stretches that go along with the other, so that their body parts will work for the other therapies. Yoga is perfect for stretching and helping out all of your occupational therapy work. So certainly if you can find a kids yoga class or something like that, that's fun too. For boys, it's a little different, because boys don't like to take yoga. Logan was good with it until he got a little bit older, and then when he's the only boy in there, he was like, yeah, no, mom. So remember that if you have boys, that some of these things, like boys may or may not want to take yoga. You may have to sell it a little different than you do with a girl. Massage is also great. Taking your child for a massage, it helps work out those knots in their body, which helps their muscles to stretch and to do what you need them to do. Most kids, even older kids, will go for a massage. That's one of Logan's favorite memories, is when we used to go for massages on a regular basis. So it helps to relax them, and it also helps their body to make the connections. So it's twofold there. Local specific stretching is when you know that your child has a problem with a specific muscle and you just work that muscle. So Logan had tight Achilles, and so he couldn't walk for long periods of time because then his ankles and his feet would hurt. So we worked specifically on stretching just that muscle. So that was in addition to the core work, stamina work, all that other work where it stretches all of them, it kind of works all of the muscles. But if there's something specific that your child needs work on, then that would be the local specific stretching. You can find lots of ideas on Google. You just Google active kids, and most of these things will come up, and you can just adapt them to your child's limitations. So if it came up to do jumping jacks and then burpees, we would just do the jumping jack part because Logan would never be able to do a burpee. Heck, I'm an adult and I can't do a burpee, but Logan would not have the coordination needed to do that. So we would have to start much smaller and work on the jumping jacks and then move on to the burpee if we were going to do that. Sensory processing therapy is a little different than all the other therapies. I stuck this in here because it's important that you take into account your child's sensory needs or issues, because you have to address those first and foremost before you can any of the other things will work. If their sensory system is out of whack and just going crazy, nothing you do is going to work. So it's important to have a sensory diet in place, and that could include sensory bags, bins, or bottles. As you see in the picture, we make Olaf sensory bags, and they have fun moving Olaf's eyes and nose and all that all around. And that activity is actually on my blog if you're interested. There's brushing and joint compressions. Brushing is where you take a dry brush and you sort of brush their arms and legs, and then you do joint compressions after, and it resets the nervous system to help them to calm down and to be able to sit for not long periods, but longer periods than they normally sit. And that's on my blog as well. Listening therapy is a great one. It's where they listen to on their headphones and they try to follow the sound. That is great for auditory processing delays because it helps make those neural pathways that I've been talking about for a while in their brain, so that they can then make the connections and hear what you're saying better, so that then their speech will come along. Erlen lenses are good using different color, or you could use different colored paper if you can't afford the Erlen lenses. That helps kids who have some sort of it's an auditory processing issue, but it's because the child can't see what's on the paper. So using different colored paper helps their brain to focus on the words that are on the paper rather than on the fact that there's a giant piece of paper and trying to differentiate between the words and the paper. So a lot of times, if people have found that if you just copy their schoolwork onto different colored paper, they can do it. It works great for people with dyslexia. Lots of people use that little trick in the dyslexia groups. Sensory breaks are what we call brain breaks here in Autism Land. It's after you work for 10 or 15 minutes, you get up, you run around, you do some jumping jacks, you just get up and move. Their attention span, especially for when they're super young, like this sweet girl is going to be 5 to 10 minutes tops. The sooner you realize that and make it work for your child, the better it's going to be for everybody. So just do 5 to 10 minutes. Take a 5-minute break where you get a drink of water. Sometimes getting some ice water will help reset the nervous system. Where you just walk around, you play some silly game, and then you come back to your homeschool work. So that way your child has that break, their body has reset, and they're ready to move on. Learning where their body is in space is another thing that is hard for kids with autism or with special needs, because it's hard for them to know how to move their body and where their body relates to when they're walking around. So they may flail, they may move around in ways that look odd to other people because they don't have a good concept of where their body is in space. So you may need to work on that. Chewery is always a good idea, especially if you have a chewer. And a chewer is someone who is going to chew on their pencil, on their pen, on their shirt, they have to have something in their mouth. And if you don't have chewery, Ice works good for this. Giving them some sort of gum is good. They can chew gum while they work. A lot of times that will reset the nervous system. They can suck on, if they're older and they're not going to choke to death on it, because no one wants to do the Heimlich maneuver during homeschool lessons. They can, small candies like peppermints and things like that sort of wake up their nervous system and help them to focus. So all of those things are great. There's also your child doesn't have to sit at the table in order to do their lessons. So they could sit on an exercise ball and sort of bounce up and down. You can put rubber bands across the bottom of the chair so that their feet can move back and forth as they work. So things like that, just acknowledging that they have some sensory processing issues and that you need to make accommodations for that in your homeschool will help your homeschool go so much better. Social skills therapy is another one that it's sort of easy to add it into your homeschool for free. And I do a whole session in this particular homeschool track on that. So you want to catch that one. But it's super easy to do. You would utilize different areas for different skills. So if you're working on waiting in line, you would go to the post office. If you're working on waiting your turn, you could go to the park. So you can use like the library, the store, different areas to work on different skills. It's important to know your child's developmental age. You can't expect something out of your 10-year-old child that he is not able to do, because developmentally he's 5 years old. So if your 10-year-old is at a 5-year-old level, you would expect whatever a 5-year-old would do, even though your child is chronologically 10. So Logan is chronologically almost 21, but he's really developmentally still in the 13 to 15-year-old range. So I would expect attitude like a 13 to 15-year-old, or behaviors that are typical for a 13 to 15-year-old boy, not that are typical for an almost 21-year-old man. So it's important that you know their developmental age. Socialization, of course, isn't about same age peers. Your goal for your child is to get them within a couple years or so of their actual chronological age as an adult, because as an adult, we don't socialize just with our same age peers. I don't go out and just hang out with other 45-year-old women or people. I have friends who are in their 30s, who are in their 20s, who are in their 60s, who are in their 50s. You get a wide area range of friends there in ages. So socialization doesn't have to be just with 10-year-olds. If you have a 10-year-old, you want to expose your child to social situations with different ages and different genders, just so that they have experience dealing with different kinds of people. Always, always, always safety first when you're working on social skills. Lots of kids with special needs don't have the concept of danger. So they often tell too much information to people that don't need to know it, like where they live, who's home. They will go off with people they don't know because they don't realize that those people could hurt them. They may be attracted to water, or they may not realize that they have to look both ways before crossing the street. All of these are skills that you have to work on. So make sure that there are always eyes on your child even when you're working on social skills, so that you keep them safe. If they are an eloper or a wanderer, you want to get some sort of GPS system like Angel Sense on them, so that you can find them quickly should they disappear in the blink of an eye, which they tend to do. There are lots of great places to find therapy items that are cheap. Amazon's a great one. Amazon has everything, so I buy everything off Amazon. Local sporting goods stores are going to have great things like exercise balls, TheraBands, things like that. The Target Dollar Bin and Dollar Tree are where you're going to find the great things to work on fine motor, like the lacing cards, or auditory processing. You can find the search and find books in there. Super cheap, like $1. So you don't feel terrible for buying it, even though you have 50 of them at home. TheraPro, Children's Therapy Store, and Lakeshore Learning are all online retailers that have great therapy items that you can use for your child. So those are just some of the places I look when I'm looking for therapy items for Logan. So now that I've told you all the fun ways you can do therapy at home, which is perfect if you're trying to afford autism or special needs, let's talk about ways to fund therapy at home, because therapy, whether you do it at home or in a center, it can be expensive. So you need to sort of think out of the box here if you need big items like a trampoline, or if you're looking for someone to fund the hippotherapy, things like that. So a lot of states like Florida and Arizona have state homeschooling scholarships. Florida has the Gardner Scholarship, and Arizona has what we call the ESA scholarship, that you can buy therapy items. You get a certain amount of money for your child for the year, and then you can buy therapy items like exercise balls and things like that that you need to help your child to learn. So look into your state homeschooling scholarship. It's always good to look there. The Kiwanis Club, Easter Seals, and Shriners will often have, I sort of forgot how to talk there, but they will often have ways, grants that you can use to buy the bigger items, or to help buy the bigger items, like if your child needs a 3-wheel bike because he can't ride a bike, or if he needs a certain kind of wheelchair because it would be better for his therapy, or if you need a trampoline so that your child can run outside and take a brain break. Those 3 organizations will often give out grants that will help they'll either purchase it for you, or they'll give you a substantial amount of money toward it. So don't overlook those 3 organizations, or organizations like that. There are always national organizations for your child's diagnosis. We have autism here in Autism Land, so I would look at the National Autism Society. The National Autism Association will often give out grants for iPads for nonverbal children. So just look into some of those big national organizations and see what they do to help out families. Of course, a bake sale and a yard sale is always a good idea. The best yard sale we ever had was when we just told people to set the price. You just set all the items out there, and they just come up and they pay what they can. Lots of people, especially if you have big signs and you have a donation jar, things like that there, will give more than the item's worth because they know that you're using it to fund therapy. So if you need a big ticket item, don't overlook, especially at the holidays, the bake sales, but during the year, the yard sales and things like that. They can be a lot of work to pull off, but they can also be pretty beneficial. A GoFundMe page, or an ongoing You Caring page where people can check in, or if you happen to you want to blog it so that people can sort of follow along on your adventure, are great ways to do it as well. Don't be afraid to just flat out say on social media, if your child needs an item that's out of your range, hey, my kid needs a trampoline. Here's how it helps. Here's what we're hoping to do with it. Here's how much it costs. And lots of people, especially friends and family, will normally step up and say, hey, I could give you $5 or $10 for that. And then it helps you to save up that much faster. I would not do that every day or every month, but sometimes when Logan needs a big ticket item, or his sister needed $900 hard contact lenses, and so I couldn't afford a $900 copay with all the other therapies we were doing, and so I went onto Facebook and set up a GoFundMe, and it was funded in no time because friends and family want to help. They just don't know how to help. So if you're honest with them on why you need it, and you're not asking, for a trip to Disney World or something like that, most people will be happy to help you. So don't overlook just flat out asking and setting up a GoFundMe or a You Caring page. The difference between GoFundMe and You Caring is that You Caring normally has the medical issues and things like that on it, and they don't charge for it. Where GoFundMe, either you're going to pay a fee for it, or I think they've changed it recently so that when people give a donation, they have to pay a certain fee to go toward funding GoFundMe, because they are a business, so that's the difference. GoFundMe has a fee and You Caring does not. Lots of people though they know about GoFundMe and they know how to use it, so that's why it's more recognizable. So there you have it. That's how we do therapy at home here in Autism Land for our child with autism and his sister as she needs it. So we have all of these ideas and how we do it online. On my blog, Facebook, Twitter, you'll see day-to-day pictures on Instagram, and I also have a group, Life in Autism Land, that you can join. But if you have any questions, or if you need any assistance, if you have a specific problem that you need help with, feel free to email me at penny@ourcrazyadventuresinautismland.com, and I would be happy to discuss it with you and give you any advice that I think that might be beneficial for you. Thanks for joining me. Have a great day.